Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Hi, welcome to the second to last episode of Devcom Tutorials, coding for Unreal Engine in C++. The last 8 weeks, we've done amazing things. We've even built a little, somewhat kind of a game ourselves in only 3 evenings, which is a pretty good segue to the coming weekend, because in the next weekend there's the Ludum Dare 40 something. I always forget the numbers, but numbers are overrated anyways, where many people will make a game in only 72 hours, and maybe even in 42 if they go hardcore mode. Yeah, so I don't know, are any of you attending in Ludum Dare? Are you making stuff, maybe even using some of the insight you might have taken away from the last 8 weeks? So today we're going a bit more abstract. Today we'll be looking at a few good practices, maybe even best practices. I don't want to call them best practices, but it's stuff that's proven to be useful, and that this is basically how you should do things if you want to avoid problems later on down the road. So we're not so much looking at technical, super low-level technical stuff like how to create an actor component. We'll create actor components and we will create actors. We will do all these things today, but we will demonstrate a few ways of doing things, like avoid hard-coded static values, always make them configurable or settable in the editor. Always see that everything your class needs, you give in from the outside. These kind of things that might avoid some problems or stepping stones down the road once your project becomes big. Because all of these things, or most of these things, at first you might ask, why should I do that? I mean, that's way more work, and the other way, just doing it, works as well. Why invest more work to do basically the same thing? And the answer is because once your project grew larger and you actually have a really big project, maybe even one with multiple people working on it at the same time, once you reach that point, you know why. Because science. That as well. Because intro, here it comes. All right, here we are. Once again, a wonderful evening to everyone who's already tuned in, and a future welcome for everyone who's about to join in or maybe watching this later on. So, yeah, we've done so many, I've just said this in the opening, we've done so many cool things over the last 8 weeks. We took a look at how to create actors or actor components at all in Unreal, and what these are and how they work. And we even made a little game. We made our Game of Life implementation in only three evenings with a lot of talking. So that might even count as a game jam. I don't know. So yeah, next weekend, Ludum Dare, the game jam. I would like to participate. I would really like to. I'm not sure if I'm actually able to, because the last few weeks have it's like, let me put it this way. It was not just laying at the couch and watching Netflix. It was quite a lot of work. So I'm a little bit tired and exhausted. So I'm not sure if I find the energy to actually pull through 48 or 72 hours of a game jam and making something. Maybe I'll just puzzle on something alongside and maybe not even finish something and not submit something, but playing around a bit with Unreal and try to do something. If you want that, if I actually manage to do this, I will stream this. Okay, right now it's not just below me, it's under the preview, under those chairs and all the thing, you know, the Twitter handles down there that have been there for the last 8 weeks. The first one, this is the one, should I actually do something for the Ludum Dare, and should I try to, well, make something tiny and small? I will stream this on my channel, which is the Twitch channel, is the very same as the Twitter handle, so easy to find. And it will be in Unreal, so should I get along to making something, it will be made in Unreal, so maybe even for those who are interested in seeing a bit more about doing actual stuff in Unreal, or, I don't know, maybe have the one or the other question we can answer alongside. Feel free to join. Yeah. So, and today, again, we'll just using a bit of the things we've already done, and I will try to not go into too much detail why I make a actor component, why I make the actor itself as a blueprint and stuff, because that's all things we've covered the past 8 weeks. And this week we're going to be looking a bit more at practices, at least common practices. I personally think they're actually best practices, and I learned many of these from best practices articles or people who told me, yeah, that's best practice to do it that way. I'm a bit hesitant to call it best practice, but because best practice always sounds like this is the way you have to do it. I say this is the very best way, so any other way is not good. And I have a problem with that, because there's other ways, and sometimes other ways are better. There's even exceptions to those rules. I personally, when I write my code, I have very, very strict rules on how the code has to be structured and has to be laid out. And that's actually many of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today. And sometimes I even violate my own rules, because sometimes it makes sense. There's an exception to any rule. So also for this, like one of the things I always say is don't use statics. Never ever use static methods, because if you start using methods, you can go back to the C64 and program BASIC. It's the very same thing. If you use statics, you can throw all your object-oriented programming in the trash can and just ignore it and just do procedural stuff again. So don't do statics, but there's exceptions to this. There's situations, very few of them, but they do exist where it actually makes sense to use a static method. And just yesterday, when I was working on something, I did use a static. I made it static, but mostly because that wasn't a method that actually did logic. That didn't have actual business logic that did stuff and worked and everything. It was mostly just getting a value. No, just that the value consists of 2 or 3 separate values. So I just made this static method that just combined these 3 other values it already knew and then just returned you. So yeah, in that very situation it made sense, but it's always case by case. So we spoiler alert, don't use statics. Just don't. If we work with pull request, by the way, for those of you who know what that is. And if I see a static function, my first reaction is to reject the pull request, unless you have a very good reason why that's there. Then I might actually greenlight your pull request, but we definitely would have to talk about that. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff I want to share with you today. So let's settle on calling it good practices, because it's things I highly recommend you doing or sticking to. If you say, nah, for me that doesn't work, I do it another way, and maybe it works better for you. That still doesn't mean that it's really better, because there's some. I will try to explain what happens if you don't do it whenever possible, and when I get the chance to it. But sometimes I mentioned this in the opening at first, and when I started using frameworks or such, and you had to do so much boilerplate things, and I was like, why do I have to do this? Why can't I just write my few lines of code and be done? Why do I have to have this and then that and then do things a certain way? But then the projects grew bigger and more complex, and more people started working at those projects, and finally I realized, damn, this actually now makes sense. So yeah, rule of thumb is, and at first in those little examples and demonstrations we're just dealing with here, most of the things actually might not seem like they make sense. It's like you're doing so much unnecessary work just to get the same result. But trust me, in the big picture, in the so many times mentioned in the last minute, bigger projects, this really pays out, and sometimes it's the only way to keep stuff even maintainable. I mean, writing good code, and this is basically what I want to talk about today a bit, is now after 8 weeks of looking at how to code, we know how to code, but there is coding, there's code, and there's good code, because we want to be good developers, we want to be good programmers, so we want to write good code. We don't only want to write code that in the end works and does something. We should want to write good code. But what makes code good? When is a piece of code good code? And there is a few things that you can, if those are given, then you can say, yeah, that's good code. It has to be understandable. Not unnecessarily complex or complicated. It has to be, if someone who has never looked at your project so far and he looks at a certain piece of code, he needs to be able to pretty quickly, ideally instantly, understand, okay, it's doing this and that and that. Of course, the guy needs to know programming. You can't show this to your grandma and she says, "Oh yes, my dear, I understand." No. Talking about other programming coworkers or other coders. So when they look at your code, they instantly need to understand, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that, okay. And there's this little fancy word like self-documented code. Self-documenting code, which is very fine, and in a perfect world you would have only that, but sometimes the code can't document itself. And what is self-documenting code? Self-documenting code basically is writing code that is kind of clear. So the method names have solid names, so you know what they're doing. But sometimes you just have to put comments on them and do that. There's no such thing as too many comments. And this is actually something I'm guilty of, not making too many comments, but these days I make not enough comments. I kind of lost my habit. I actually had a habit of commenting almost any line I wrote, any block of code. I put a comment on that and saying something to that. That's a habit I kind of lost, and I have to re-find this. I have to regain this and to see that I put way more comments in my code. There is no such thing as too many comments. Comments are always good. And Nutaku fan, hi, wonderful evening to you. And you have a small question. Do I self-develop for a living, like a main job reason? You ask. These are the next thing I want to ask. Yes, I actually do. I code for a living. I do code. I do software development for a living for many, many years now. Programming and software development is actually my main job. Yep. Just for a short while, I finally made it into game dev. I've previously worked in a different area of software development, and with one of our current projects, this has actually been proven to be quite an advantage of having experience with more business-oriented software and larger projects. So yeah, but I actually do this for a living for basically almost all my life. Yeah, quite some time, definitely quite some time. Yep, and this might lead to the next question you want to ask. I'm curious of what question that might be. Yeah, so I think we should just hop over. Denise, hi. A wonderful evening also to you. Nice for you to stop by. You just graduated college back in 2016, but been struggling to get a job in IT. You know, Python, C, C++, C#, Java, SQL. Nice. What would I recommend to learn? You basically already cover the most important things. Brauchen wir noch eine berufsfremden Praktikantin? Well, I don't know. We currently have an intern. we currently have one, but applications for internships are open. So just go to the Spaceflower webpage, and there's a huge red button on the top looking for intern. Yeah, we currently have one, but you can't have too many interns, especially when they're not paid. Well, they are paid. They're paid a bit. They're not working. They're not making our coffee for free. So they get like, I don't know, 10 cents per cup of coffee they bring me or something. Yeah, they get paid. They do get paid. STS Deserte. A wonderful evening. Hi. Greetings. How is everyone today? I'm fine. I'm super fine. Yeah, for many reasons. Because I like being fine. I don't like to feel bad or be bad or something. But yeah, made good progress with things on project side, and the new IGDB thing for with Twitch. That thing rocks. That thing just rocks. That's a good thing they did there. Nutaku fan, it's interesting that you struggle to get a job in IT, because I mean this might also be where you're coming from. I mean, country-wise, if you're, I don't know, in Germany, if you're in the US or Canada, UK, whatever, I don't know. Because here in Germany, if you're a programmer, you actually have a problem not finding a job, because currently, as I said, at least for Germany, I've no idea how this is in other countries or other places around the world, but here for us, there is a huge demand of developers, of programmers, but not enough who actually can fill all the open spots, the open jobs that are available. So if you're a programmer, you're highly sought after. So yeah, but I said this is you went to college online for. Everyone's got a bachelor's, but haven't been able to get. Oh, Florida. Okay, that's US. I have no idea how the situation in the US is. I have no idea. Oh, Deserte hasn't slept because Genshin Impact caught you badly. Yeah, I went to bed a bit later or early again yesterday as well, because when we finished the stream yesterday, I started continuing. Well, I started continuing. Yeah, I continued working on something I was working prior the day before the stream, and that, I don't know, I think I went to bed at like 3 or something. But at least I got my API implementation working, because I was working on implementing a new API into our current project. So a new API implementation. So the API exists, but it needed to be implemented into this project so I can use it. And I kind of finished that, so everything's working at the moment. Yeah, but anyways, New Dragovan, a word to you again. Fingers crossed for you to find something. The things you say Python, C, C++, C#, Java, SQL, especially C, C++, and Java. Those are very, very valuable because especially Java coders are, at least from the job offerings I see, there's a huge demand on Java developers. Again, I have no idea how the exact situation is in the US. I have seen international job offerings though that were not only for our region. So Java is definitely sought after. Dominic doesn't like Java. Yeah, neither do I. I really don't like. I really dislike Java. But there's many companies who actually use Java, who have applications that are written in Java for whatever reason. Maybe because they started developing these applications before C# was invented. So now they're kind of stuck with their Java code because porting everything over to a different programming language, that's a huge undertaking. It's redoing an existing project and putting the current code aside and starting from scratch. I've done this 1 or 2 times in the past. That's a huge undertaking. Takes a crap load amount of time and work, and it really costs so much money for whoever has to pay this. Fortunately, I was one of the ones who got paid because I was one of the employees who had to do all the new code. So I was paid for this, but whoever had to pay for that wasn't cheap. Yeah. So yeah, well, fingers crossed. You have a solid base there. Definitely have a solid base. And maybe, I'm not sure if you have a portfolio or something, if you have any projects you can show, because I think this might actually, and I hope someone corrects me if I'm wrong, but this might something we here in Germany actually start adapting from how it's actually handled in the US, because from what I know, in the US, people don't look that much at your papers. They don't look, you have those grades in school, and if you can show them actual work, if you can show them, look, this is project I have done, these proof that I know what I'm doing, then that's quite worth a lot. So maybe try to create a small portfolio of projects. Maybe if you have time, do some projects that you can show off to possible employers, to show them, look, you need something who does this. I made this, and this is basically done with exactly what you need. So this proves I'm your guy. You need me. You really, really need me. You just don't know it yet. So yeah, unfortunately, there's not much more I can do or say. So fingers crossed and all the best. So, wir müssen mal komplett Code umschreiben, weil der neue... Okay. Okay, someone Dominic knew had to rewrite a project completely in a different programming language, in C# in this case. The program was done in C++, but the boss wanted it to have in C#, so they had to rewrite the whole thing and port it over to C#. I don't know the reasons. I don't know the reasons why the boss wanted this. There might have been good reasons to do this. There might have not. It's hard to tell. I don't know. Both are possible. Both are possible. Dadla, hi there. Greetings. Finally found a solution for your stupid Windows rearranges Windows when you turn off your... Yeah, that's a common problem with Windows. If you unplug a monitor, Windows completely screws up all your desktop icons, all the window placements. Everything's completely screwed up. And if you replug the monitor, if you plug it back in, things get even worse. I have no idea why they never managed to actually fix or solve this. Why they never put a decent, a working handling of this into Windows. But yeah, I know this issue because I'm working with multiple monitors myself, and like to plug it out and plug it back in. And some monitors even have the bad habit of when you turn them off, Windows thinks, okay, there's nothing connected anymore. Because usually when the monitor is turned off or something, Windows still sees, okay, there's a display connected to me, so I'll still be handling this, and I will still display stuff on that. You just don't see it because it's turned off or something. Or if you switch inputs, some monitors have multiple inputs. So if you switch over to another input, Windows will still see the monitor and will still output. You just don't see it because it's switched to a different input. But I have one, admittedly it's a TV, that I've used a lot as a huge monitor. I actually used it as preview monitor for my stream. Currently I can't because I don't have enough room, enough space here. The problem with the thing is, if you turn it off, and I'm not talking like pulling the plug and completely cutting power to it. Nah, just grab the remote and hit the power button. Or even if you switch it to a different input, because that thing has 3 HDMI inputs as well. So if you switch it to just a different input, Windows completely loses this display, and Windows thinks, okay, there's nothing connected to me anymore. And yeah, it screws everything up. All your windows are just a wild mess. The interesting stuff is this works perfectly on Mac. It's so amazing. This is a problem you don't have on Mac. On Mac, this works so nicely. You have your windows like you want them, and then you unplug all your monitors, because like you have a laptop and you need to go into a meeting. So you unplug everything, you go into the meeting, you maybe plug the projector into your Mac, so a completely different external display. And you rearrange your windows because you want to show this and that and yada, yada, yada. And when you get back to your own desk and you plug your monitors in, Mac recognizes this. Mac sees, okay, these are the monitors I had before, and it remembers where your windows were. And it rearranges and resizes the windows. So everything is exactly like you left it. Like you've never been gone. And this is so amazing. Even with another display having connected in the meantime, you come back, you reconnect your monitors, you just take a deep breath while all the resolution is set and everything. And everything is just as you've never been gone. It works perfectly. Yeah, but on Windows they for quite a while I don't think they will ever figure this out and fix this. So the boss hasn't good reasons, but the new boss comes new from the university and they only knows C# from there. Okay, so like I'm the boss. I have no experience in this field, but I'm the boss. And I don't know C++, I only know C#, so we have to port the whole, instead of just learning C++, which might have been quite less expensive. Yeah. And I don't know, I like C. I like C and C++. I haven't always, but I actually grew to liking it. Yep. There isn't many programming languages I don't like. Most programming languages I don't like start with Java. Some are just called Java, some are called JavaScript. Yeah. But all of these I really don't like. Yeah, they have more in common than just the first 4 or 5 letters of the name. Yeah. And that also was Data's problem. Turning on off the monitor screwed everything up. Yeah, because that's especially TVs have this behavior, and even some monitors have this. Like my 1440p monitor, if I switch that to a different input, the computer completely loses whatever it's going to be losing. The computer thinks, okay, there's nothing connected to me anymore, just because I've switched the monitor to a different input. And this really sucks. That's yeah. I kind of fixed this by putting a splitter in between. Yeah. So I didn't put the TV or the monitor directly into my computer. I put an HDMI splitter in between. So I plugged the HDMI splitter into the computer, and then the TV or the monitor into the HDMI splitter, because the HDMI splitter is always there. So Windows always sees an output device, because it always sees the HDMI splitter, because it's a completely device separately on its own. And the HDMI splitter didn't care if there's anything connected to the splitter outputs or not. It just didn't care, but it was always present for Windows. So this way I prevented, my Windows going nuts and everything. Yep. So I would say let's dive into it. Let's switch over to this fancy view, and let me, maybe for the last time for a while, remind you at this lovely hashtag here right above me, and of course the Twitter handles down below. Feel free to follow the Twitter handles below, even if you don't have any questions. Maybe I have answers without you ever having been asked, or haven't asked. Well, that was quite bad. You know what I mean. Maybe you never ask, and yet still you will get an answer on those Twitter handles. So feel free to follow them. You can also follow them here on Twitch, because the names are the very same. Just replace the Twitter @ replace it with twitch.tv/, and you will come to the recording channels, and feel free to follow there as well. And of course, the lovely hashtag up there already mentioned. You can use this to tweet at Ask Devcom Tutorials. And next week is the last chance, for now, for your question being covered and answered live here on stream with we're recording in front of a live audience. Remember back in the 90s, TV shows used to do this, recorded in front of a live studio audience. And we're doing this here. It's just not the studio. We're recording live in front of a chat audience. Yes. So that's that. What about Kotlin, the new Java or Scala? I have no idea, because I've never used them. I heard about them. I know they exist. I know the names. But I have never worked with them. I haven't even taken a closer look at them. So I don't know. I can't answer that one, because I just have absolutely no experience with those. So, heard of the second, but not the first one. Yeah, there's so many things. You can't know everything. You just can't know everything, because even programming languages, there's so many programming languages. If you want to know them all, you spend your whole life just learning the basics. So stick to whatever you need. Stick to what for now gets the job at hand done. Of course, try to look for alternatives, because there might be better ones, but stick to the tools that just do the job and get you to your goal, and get done whatever you want to do. And the one thing I might be wanting to do is saying hello to Avari. Hi, a wonderful evening, Avari. Greetings. Google wanted to replace Java with Kotlin in Android. Okay. Oh yeah. And I don't have enough to drink here. Maybe I need to stock up. I don't know. Maybe I need to stock up my throat lubricant. Yeah, because the throat always needs to be lubricated quite well, or coffee things start happening. I wonder why Google won't just replace it with, I don't know, Go. So they have everything in their control. They make Android with a programming language they also made themselves. So that will be something. But yeah, it's a completely different world. Goes more into the direction of stuff like C, yet not completely. It just barely into that direction, but more into that direction as into like the Java direction or anything. Where you replace the empty stomach with a full one. Oh, that's good. So how you do that? How do you replace the empty stomach with a full one? Is it like you're slicing open and pull the empty one out, put it aside, grab the full one and plugging it back in? Or how does that work? Because it kind of sounds like that. Okay, Deserte, happy lurking, and Chinese food. Chinese food is Chinese. No, Chinese food is good. Yeah, I've eaten already. I've also I'm well fed. Yeah, today. Everything's good. I just, as said, I just need to see what to do about my throat lubricant. But I don't think this will be an unfixable program. So, what did we want to do? We wanted to take a look at, some good practices, how to structure your code and what to do and stuff. So first of all, again, let's start with like we start always. We make a test blueprint, and we suffix this with today's date, which is quite nicely binary 1001. Now, isn't that a nice binary date? So, but not much to do there yet, because we're also doing a new C++ class, and we're using an actor component, and this will be this. How do we call this? We can't call this test component again because we already have a test component, I think. So let's I need a creative name for let's call this practice. Let's call this practice component, because we're talking about good practices, and also we're practicing a bit doing stuff. So yeah, I think that is all good and well. Yep. Adding code to project 43%, 57. Please stand by. Please hold the line while we're adding your new files to your project. Bum bum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-da. Your position in the current queue is 86%. Please hold the line. Bum bum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-dum. And here we go. And did it open? Oh, it even for a change it even opened in the right window. Isn't that lovely? That is so nice. So again, I mean, we're used to this by now. We just clean up a bit. La 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 la. We just clean this up a little bit. Oh yeah, and also this one can go up there, and then we just make our private block here. All right, so this is just our little practice component, and so who's talking about beaming? Oh yeah, beaming stuff over. Yeah, that will be something. I hope they eventually invent this thing, and then you have to hope that you're not actually dying, and just a copy of you will be recreated at wherever you're transported to. This is an ongoing discussion of the Star Trek transporter. Are you actually moved over? Are you really transported over to the new location? Or are you disassembled and destroyed, which essentially means you die? And then based on the scan, based on the information, just before you've been destroyed, another copy of you will be recreated that doesn't know that its original had just been destroyed and it's just a copy because it just remembers being transported over. So yeah, that's an ongoing discussion of the Star Trek transporter. And even though this is slightly off topic, I would actually, I'd be interested in your opinion about this. So let's, for the sake of just having one, and I don't want to be in the begin player of the Devcom Tutorials, let's say we have a method, and that is do something important. And this is just a placeholder function. Let's suppose this is create declaration, and yeah, it put it right there. Cool. So let's just say this. I don't know. This does something super important. This is some integral part of your project, of your game or your application or whatever you're writing, and also, this isn't scripted today. I haven't prepared a huge and detailed script of how to do and what examples to do. So this is a bit ad-lib today. So perfectly fitted for your input to coming in here. Yes. So it's using two values. I don't know. It's using value 1 and it's using another value 2. And then there is the important result. And let's say it's just like in your game, and it's maybe default values like how fast is something moving, or yeah, this might actually be a good example. So yeah, let's call this the speed of the importance, and let's say this is, I don't know, this is the defense, because I mean we're basically talking game dev here. Of the importance. Not even sure if that's written correctly, but I hope it is. Just have toast with cheese. A sandwich. A cheese sandwich. All you need now is a sandwich maker. And then you put some ham into it, or maybe even bacon, and maybe a tomato or something, and some salad, and then you just slam the sandwich maker shut, and okay, now I'm hungry. So let's say this is like the speed. Let's say do something important means moving an actor from A to B, like I've showed you so many times our Let Them Trade project. There's those traders that move around the map, and they need to have a speed. They need to have a certain speed with which they move over the map. So this might actually be the speed, and they might be attacked on their way going somewhere, so they have a defense value. And then you do something. It's the important result. This is just, again, the important result is just a stand-in for whatever we are doing. So this might be actually our actor moving over the stream. So because this is just an example to show what I'm actually talking about, and then also how to do these things. I mean, a few of these things, some of these things we've already done and covered, so it shouldn't be that new. But it's not so much about the technical how we do stuff, but more this is actually how we're supposed to do this to avoid problems down the road. You don't have a sandwich maker. Oh, that's bad. But then we have something in common, because I don't have one either. I just have a simple toaster. I just have a simple and default toaster. 2 slices of toast, slice 1, slice 2. Then you push the thing down, and eventually you get a jump scare because you forgot you got your toaster running, and then it makes kaboing. Yeah, and there you go. So let's say, I don't know, let's say this is just the speed of importance, and we just add the other thing to it, which is the defense, and we say pretend something really important happens here, like an actor moving on the map and being attacked and defending itself, because this is just a simple stand-in. So and there's another thing. I'm not sure if I will be able to. You know what? Let's try this, because this is something I would have actually liked to demonstrate to you, but I couldn't so far, because every time I tried, it actually gave the expected result. So maybe we can sidetrack a bit here, because I hope that there's something going insanely off track here. But to do this, we also have to call this first. So we have to, you know what? Let's put this in begin play. Let's put this in begin play. So it's been called. And then we just need to attach this. So we go to debug game editor Win64, and we start the Unreal editor back in debug mode. So to my question about Star Trek beaming, you tend to say B, disassembled and reassembled makes the most sense. Yeah, this is also my worries. So you basically die. So when I say, nice, I do not want to make this 500-kilometer trip, I just want to beam myself over, just to say Lakeside hello, because she's so far away and I want to say hi, but I don't want to travel 500 kilometers or something. I just beam myself over. That's it. I'm dead. Game over. Done. We'll never get there. Cannot say hello. But instead a copy is created, and that doesn't know that it's a copy. So nobody will actually know that anyone ever died, because people just don't remember dying. Because dying is quite hard to remember. Yeah, and this is also my trouble with the transporter. It could work. It could work if it actually works on quantum level. There is something like quantum teleportation, but that's not what Star Trek does. This is not what Star Trek does, but there is something like quantum teleportation, and this is actually a real thing. This isn't even science fiction. At least in theory, quantum teleportation exists, and quantum teleportation is actual, really teleportation. And they've even done this. It's even so much not science fiction that in a lab they already have done this. They have performed quantum teleportation, just with tiny little things, like a single atom or something, a single hydrogen or what's the other thing called? Helium atom. They did it with that. So not even an apple. So they have to put quite some more work into this. But in theory, this exists, and that would actually be true teleportation and would not kill you. What also doesn't kill me is that this didn't compile, because we just have to find out why. Uninitialized low, yes, I know this, but this is supposed to be a warning, and this is supposed to be a warning and not a hard, the compiler won't do it for me. Or we have to make a struct out of this. I mean, we've talked about structs before. We could just make a struct out of this. Because I've had this before and it did compile, so maybe we can cheat it. I will be packed into a 200 petabyte file sent to the destination and exabit line and then unpacked, reassembled. Yeah, but this is exactly the question. When I'm going to be reassembled, is that reassembly a copy of mine or is that actually me? Maybe we can cheat this just to get this compiled. I'm not sure. This might actually work. This might actually work. Assigned value never used. Yeah, I don't care. But yeah, the compiler does care. Okay, wait. Oh, come on. I want to have this thing in my freaking clipboard. Thank you. So, what is this? Assigned value is never used. Yeah, I don't care. For crying out loud. Maybe it compiles now. I have to cheat the compiler a bit because I want to force the compiler to do something the compiler really doesn't want to do. And the compiler has a damn good reason why it the compiler has a damn good reason why it doesn't want to do this. Also, something's spelled wrong here. The thing is, I would really like to demonstrate you something that is super dangerous and can produce the weirdest of bugs. I've mentioned this already, I've talked about this already, but I would really like to be able to show it to you. But I can't get the compiler to actually do it because the compiler knows this will result in something you do not want, likely. Although the name is uninspired by the teleportation commonly used in fiction, quantum teleportation is limited to the transfer of information rather than matter itself. Yeah, we have to sci-fi a way around that. We have to sci-fi a way around that. Yeah, but it's true. Actually, teleportation of matter. That's. Yeah, I'm not sure this is actually possible in the universe. I don't think the universe wants this. Just equals null pointer. Yeah, well, there's no null pointers in here. But the compiler knows that these have never been initialized with something sensible. And I actually want to demonstrate you why the compiler also thinks this is a really bad idea what we're doing here. Yeah. Let's try this. Wait, let's try this with. Let's try this with a struct. Maybe we can. Let me copy paste because I want to make this Unreal compatible. This struct. So let me just copy. Why is there? There's a line. There's a new line missing at the end of this file. I know I told my IDE to always save new lines at the end of the file. Why isn't there one? So we're putting one here. I want to put something in here. I want to put a struct in there, and we call this super duper important data struct, because that's another thing. This is another. Well, this is even best practice because this is even this is even defined by the code. Let me see if I can find this, because we have this in our wiki at work. Let me just, without leaking anything. So where is Knowledge Vault? Unreal Style Guide. Yes, please. I don't need the CPP for this. The struct itself is enough. Can I copy paste this? Copy path. I want to copy. You know what? Show an Explorer. Copy paste the name from there, because this one can go, but this one has to be proper, and the remaining stuff we'll be dealing with this. Yeah. So wait. Two things at the same time. So where is UE4 Style Guide? Because this is exactly what we're talking about tonight. There's a Unreal Engine 4 Style Guide, and this thing is it's kind of official. This is actually best practice, and this is exactly one of the things I want to talk with you about tonight. Why is nobody told the compiler to this day to simply just uninitialize values to 0? Other languages do the same. Yeah, there's a technical reason for this. Other languages do this. That is right, because other languages work completely different. The reason is, well, I mean, you could do it. You could have the compiler just adding code, just like what we looked at yesterday, where the compiler changes the signature of your method, and it adds another parameter, and it passes this around without you actually wanting this. So yeah, you could actually add additional code to initialize these variables with default values. But this is exactly what I want to show you. Because the thing is, so before I try to... Okay, first things first. We're going to be talking about this in a bit. Let's go back to here first. The thing I want to demonstrate to you is exactly what Dominic already said in the chat. Absolutely right. This is exactly what I'm trying to get at. I have these variables. I have them defined. And if you've worked with other languages like C#, Java, PHP, or whatever, I don't know, what would you expect the speed of the importance to be? You expect this to be 0, because we didn't put anything in there. So the default value of variables is usually empty, and an empty integer is 0. So you would expect a 0 to be in here. This works a bit different in C, because in all these other languages, so this is also this fits quite well into tonight's topic, because this is not only best practice, this is basically mandatory practice. This is something you have to do. You have to deal with, you have to think about, because other languages actually do additional work. When you tell like C#, you say C#, hey, look, I want an integer variable of that name. Please give it to me. Then C# is, yeah, of course, no problem. Here's your variable. And it already puts a value in there. It already puts a default value into your variable, which is for integers or floats or whatever. For everything that's a number, it's 0. For bools, it's false. For strings, it's an empty string. For objects, it's null. So you have something sensible in your variable that you can expect. You know, this is a fresh, unused variable. So I have an empty value in there, which again is 0, empty string, false, whatever. this partially has to do with how these other programming languages internally work, because they actually they go to quite a lot of work to actually manage, maintain, and handle all your variables. They have like a huge warehouse where each time you say I want a variable, they create a nice little box, and then they put it into the warehouse. And since they created this nice little box, well, a fresh box where you didn't put anything into is empty. So this is actually quite a good analogy why things behave in C++ or in C like they do, and not in other programming languages. So when you say C#, I want a variable that's called A. It actually creates you from scratch this very nice and neat and little box, and the box is empty. So, and empty again is 0, false, an empty string, whatever. And then it takes this box and puts it into its warehouse. Cool. So this is why when you then say, please, C#, what is the value of my variable A? It looks into the box, it grabs the box, and it looks into the box, and it sees, okay, there's nothing in there. So you have an empty string, or a 0, because you didn't put any numbers in there. C is completely different. And another thing that's also completely different is Deserte having subscribed for 2 months. Hi, and thank you for your subscription. For the second month. The second month is the hardest one, they say, because subscribing just once, well, that's easy, but keeping on and resubscribing, that's the hard button to push. So thanks for that. Very much appreciated. And coming back to the C++, because C++ is, oh, and there's another one. The Grieved subscribed with a prime. So we have a prime Grieved in here. And if you see that this subscription, if Grieved now will see that this subscription is really in the best way it can be, or in other ways, and I think he already knows where this is ending. If Grief now sees that this prime sub is the best way it can be, so it's at its optimum level, it would be an Optimus Prime. You're welcome. C++ have no RAM usage for uninitial variables, and other languages have RAM usage. No, it's not about they all use memory. They all use RAM for this. Oh yeah, we can allow this. They also use RAM, but C is way more lazy, because C supposes that you know what you're doing. C doesn't do many things for you. Well, the compiler does some optimization, other magic stuff, yeah, but in general. So what C does is, why the other programming languages, they build you this nice box and they put it in the warehouse. What C does is, C goes into the warehouse that's already full of boxes, because consider the warehouse being your memory. And C just walks into the warehouse and looks on the right side, there's the unused boxes. And on the left, it also has nothing to do with garbage collection. That's something completely different. And yes, there is garbage collection. Well, not in C. The garbage collection comes from Unreal. But we still have garbage collection. But it also has nothing to do with the garbage collection. That's a completely different story. And that's another thing I might try to show you, because I know we've talked about this, but I think I haven't actually really properly demonstrated this. So let's see if I can actually get it to crash because of the garbage collection, because garbage collection can also be a huge evil. So C walks into this warehouse and it has all the unused boxes on the one side and it has all the used boxes on the other side. And then you tell C, okay, I want this variable A. And C walks into the warehouse and it just takes one of the boxes from the one side and just puts it to the other side. It doesn't look into it. It just says, okay, this is the box. I will recycle this box for you. I will use this box to put your variable in, and it just puts it on the shelf of used boxes. And that's it. And there might actually be something already in this box, because consider you had a program running before your now program. So, and this program used this box to store stuff in there. And then the program was ended, the program finished, and the box was put back into the unused shelf. It doesn't get emptied. Your RAM, your memory does not get emptied out when it's not used. It's like deleting a file on your hard drive. It's still there. It's just removed from the directory. So this box might have already been used. So there's old data in there. And C just walks into the warehouse and says, yeah, okay, I'm going to be using this box for you, and puts it over onto the used shelf without even looking in it. But since the box is recycled and it might have already been used, there's already something in there. And this something, whatever that something is the value of this variable when I just declare it. Because the compiler goes and says, yeah, there will be a certain place in memory where your value will be stored. And that's it. It's just this position in memory where the value is stored. But the memory might have been used already. So it's not guaranteed to be 0. There might be anything in there. Whatever remains from previous processes, from previous programs that have been run, it might still be there. And this is the danger when using, and this is also the reason why this compiler really complains and tells us, no, I won't compile you this because this will fail. Because at the moment, in this situation, all these variables have an undefined they are undefined. The contents, the value of those variables is completely undefined, because the variables themselves have been declared and there has been a spot of memory reserved where those values will be stored. But yeah, C does not go through the hassle of actually initializing all your variables with a default value. It just reserves you the memory, and that's it. And this is why these variables are undefined. They have an undefined state at the moment. And this is also what the compiler complains down here. Because it tells us, dude, I'm not gonna be working with this variable because it's uninitialized. There could be anything in there, and I don't want this. There is compiler flags to shut up, to make him shut up and just compile it, but bad things will happen, and I already had bad things happen to me because of that. And I would really like to demonstrate this. Let's see if we maybe get something with the struct or something. In C++, the stack is okay, but when you allocate memory, I always have to free the memory. That's correct. So what is garbage collection? Garbage collection is a completely different story. Garbage collection, yes, in the end it's about the memory being used, but garbage collection actually cleans up all the objects you don't use anymore. You might have unused objects, and garbage collection takes care that these objects are properly disassembled and thrown away, and therefore the memory they use is being freed up again. Garbage collection is a level higher. Yeah. It would take a bit more time to actually explain this, but when you create, and I'm gonna be trying to demonstrate this tonight. Let's see if we get this working first. Because in larger projects, especially when working with engines like Unreal, you create a lot of objects. Because everything that happens in the scene, everything that exists somewhere, everything of this is an object. So you have a lot of them. And some of them might not being used anymore. They still exist. They still sit in their corner and they feel unloved because nobody cares about them anymore. Because they're not no one's using them anymore. They're just sitting there using memory. And this is where garbage collection comes into play. Garbage collection comes into play and checks every object that currently exists if it's still being in use. And if it sees, oh yeah, this object is still being used by that guy, then everything is okay. Everything's left alone. But if the garbage collection decides, well, this object there, nobody is using this anymore, it properly deconstructs the object and therefore frees up the memory that it's using. It maybe other resources. Maybe the object is using more other resources like I don't know. There's a static mesh assigned to it, and as long as it's even not. So there might be a static mesh associated with it that still might be passed to the graphics card, all that stuff. So the garbage collection cleans up the object, destroys it, and frees all the resources this object used. And this is basically what garbage collection does. It's like when you're in your kitchen, and you cook stuff, and you let the pan there, and a glass there, and something there, and then someone else comes in and collects all the trash and brings it out. This is why it's called garbage collection, because it collects all the crap. Also, garbage collection is the process that calls the deconstructor. There's the destructor. Nope. Again, garbage collection is a process completely of its own. It has nothing to do with the actual object themselves. You can consider the garbage collection like another program. Well, it's not. It's part of your program, but it's a program within your program. The destructor is called by the language themselves. Whenever a object is destroyed, your language, the language you're using, in this case it might be C++ or it might be C# or whatever, the language itself will take care of the destructor being called and executed. But this has, again, absolutely nothing to do with the garbage collection. The garbage collection is completely separately. It's a complete separate thing. That's written in the language you're using, mostly. Sometimes it's even part of the language, because Java has a garbage collection already built in that can also eat up your performance if you're not careful. So some languages already have garbage collection built in themselves, but C++, C doesn't. The language C does not have garbage collection. That is right. Yep. So let me see if I can get this. Does this need to be the first or the last one? Because I always confuse this, because this always has to be the last include you make, but I think this always has to be the first one. So it'll complain. If it doesn't work, it'll complain. So we have our super duper important struct that we still need to create, and this will be just int32s a bcd. So that might work. Super, blah 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 blah. Is this a blueprint type? No, this is not a blueprint type. This is just, and oh yeah, we also have to properly name this. Yeah, I think that might work. So let's say this is a super duper struct. Okay. Let's see if I can use it like that, or if it'll, no, it's still complaining. Object member might not be initialized. The interesting thing is that I once actually ran into exactly this problem. I'm not sure if it was a struct or a class, but it wasn't initialized. It wasn't properly initialized. Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with the struct as well. So, heading out. Wife's coming home from work. Alrighty, griefed. Nice for you to have stopped by. Nice seeing you on a Thursday. So, have a wonderful evening. And enjoy the rest of the day with your wife. And, well, see you around. Maybe on the weekend, because I'm not sure if I will actually do something for Ludum Dare. I might not. I will decide this on very, very, very like super duper short notice. But yeah, well, there's always Discord, only a message away. Have a wonderful evening and see you around. So yeah, unfortunately this doesn't work with the struct as well. It still tells me it might not be initialized. I mean, the IDE says it might not be initialized. And the compiler definitely says, dude, you haven't done anything to this. Go away. I don't think this will work. No, this won't work. Okay. There's a good reason why this doesn't work. But just be aware, because sometimes it actually does compile, and I've actually had this when we created our Game of Life implementation. Here doing this tutorial series. I actually had this happen. I had a 3-dimensional vector for the position of our cells. Remember the cells, the ones we could click on, that were somewhere in the game world that were spawned. And the next week, when I was preparing to continue working with you guys on the game, I just checked that everything's working, and I ran it, and it wasn't working. It looked like everything spawned, but there were no cells there. And when I tried to zoom in on them, I got total garbage, because they were so far out of what the engine is able to render. And this was because I didn't set the Z value. Remember, we had a 2D grid for our Game of Life, and I only set X and Y for the coordinates where they are supposed to be in the world space, in the 3D world that's going to be rendered. And I only set X and Y. I didn't set Z. So Z had kind of an uninitialized random value, and in this case it was so large that the cells, the actors were spawned so far out of out of what the engine could render. Because when you have the editor, you can let me just zoom out a bit for demonstration purpose. You can click on anything here. You can click on that, and then you can hit F. And it focuses the editor view exactly on this object. And when I did this became white noise. The whole editor window just became white noise, because it was so far out coordinate-wise that the engine could not handle it anymore and kind of crashed. Well, it didn't really crash, but it just produced garbage. And this was because I did not explicitly set Z to 0, so it was nice on the 0 plane. And I had this random value in there. For whatever reason, the compiler didn't catch it. So yeah, there you got it. Maybe it works if we make a class out of this, but I think you get the point. I think you get the point why the compiler has every reason not to compile this. So yeah, let's just remove this again and hope it doesn't complain because I include something I'm not using now. Yeah, this will compile now, but there's nothing to see, so we don't have anything to do. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't show you, but I think I made it clear enough that you have to explicitly give your new variables a value. And what's commonly been done is something like this. That just in if this has a value that you're not planning to change much, you can just give your variable this value just when you declare it. You could also say, nah, we set this to 0, but then eventually somewhere down the road, something happens here and something happens here. So eventually they are set, but until they are set, they have this default value you give them. But you have to do this. You have to take care of your variables actually being explicitly filled with a value. Because sometimes you're lucky, like now, and the compiler notices and knows, hey, you never put something sensible in there, so this can't work. This will give you the weirdest of results. We don't do this. But sometimes the compiler might not catch it, and then it will give you the weirdest bugs. And it's so hard to figure these things out because the code itself is fine. It works. The problem is just that you expect something to be of a value that it might not. And the bigger problem even is that since these are completely random, because whatever is in here depends on what's still left in the memory. So if you just booted up your computer and the first thing you do is running this program, it might actually be 0 and everything will be fine. But your colleague, your coworker, who has been running his computer overnight with, I don't know, render tasks or whatever, the memory was completely used. He's running the program and it gives him the weirdest results. And this is even worse. It doesn't just crash, because when it crashes, you can debug it. You can see where does it crash. But when you just get weird results, you have no idea why. And this is very, very hard to debug. And again, it's on different computers, or even the same computer, but maybe after a reboot or on another day produces different results. And this is so hard. Those are one of the hardest bugs you can have and find. So always make sure to properly initialize your variables with a value, because the language does not do it for you. Dominic has pointed this out. If you use languages like C# or Java or whatever, almost all of them, just not C or C++, they initialize your new variables with an empty default value. And if you've used one of these languages a lot, like, I don't know, you've years and years in programming experience with Java or C# or any of the others, you are so used to this that you don't even think about this anymore. You declare your variable and eventually you start adding to it because you know, yeah, well, this works because Okay, this works because I have the 0 up there, but this complains again. Because you're just so used to it, you don't even think about it anymore. But in C, it's so important to think about this. Sometimes the compiler catches this, but as I've said a few times by now, sometimes the compiler doesn't. And so always make sure to eventually initialize your variables with a definite value that it's going to have now. And Dalla's going to the Pinball and Arcade Museum to do some preparations. Oh, it's open Saturday again this week. Yeah. Then Dalla, have fun and all the best for the preparations and have fun on Saturday. Unfortunately, it's now quite a bit further away from me than before when I was still living in my old place. So, yeah, but I will make it. I will make it to the Pinball and Arcade Museum again. Definitely. One of these days, I will pay you guys another visit. So, have fun, and especially on Saturday. And thanks for stopping by, and see you. Yeah, so, long story short, take care of these, because for all the reasons I've said countless times by now. So, but what I originally wanted to get at is, we have some important results, and again, do we have a UE log that I can copy paste? Because you know by now, I just can't remember this. I don't know why. This is so weird. So, super important result. And there we have it. So let's first run this. Let's compile this first. And then we go to our actor and just throw this onto it. There is our practice component. Everything's fine. Compile, save, and run. And nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Maybe we need to compile again. And we run this. And oh. Yeah. Nothing happens. This is so common. This is one of my most common mistakes. We have the actor. We have our component on the actor. We even compiled it a third time to make sure the reloading might have worked. And still nothing is happening, even though we did not forget to call this method up here. It will be called. But the problem is, I haven't pulled this actor into the scene, actually. This actor was just sitting down here in my asset library doing nothing. Of course, it has to be in the scene to actually being initialized and doing something. And there we got it. We got our super duper important result, which is 3. So since this is only a placeholder for something actually important, like the thing moved and it got attacked and it did successfully move and survive. So the first thing I wanted to get at is we have these values and they are hard coded in our code. And again, consider this to be the speed our character or NPC or whoever he is moves in the game, and this is his defense value. And those might be values that are actually important for balancing, because movement speed and defense, this might be very important. And now we have them statically in our code. So you as the coder, if your playtester says, look, the character is moving way too slow, and also if there's a bandit, he one-hit kills our NPC immediately. This is not good. We need to fix these values. And then what do? You go into your code and you change these values. You make him move faster, and you give him more defense. And then you need to recompile. And even if you give this to your playtester again, and let's say you're not giving a build, a baked build to your playtester. Let's say your playtester just also checks out your Git repository or Perforce or whatever you're using for your version control. He's just checking out the current version of the project, and he's running it because this actually happened. This did happen, but not with value change, with actually code changes. This happens a lot at our place at work, actually. I had changed something. I did fancy stuff in the code and added this, and our artist checks out the current version of the game, opens up Unreal, hits play, well, and nothing happens. It's still the old result because he has to compile it first, because the compiled files on the local hard drive are still the old versions. Unity does this automatically for you, which can get quite annoying because every time you change a file, you can't use Unity for another while, because it just sits there and says, oh yeah, you changed something. I'm going to compile this now. And he was like, come on, I just wanted to click into the inspect. Can be really annoying, but also can be nice because you don't have to remember to hit the compile button. It does it for you. In Unreal, because Unreal thinks you know what you're doing, you always have to hit the compile button yourself, and then we got the new result. But again, also if you give this to your game tester or maybe even your artist, they have to compile it first just because you changed some balancing values. If there's actual code changes, it's bad enough they have to hit the compile button themselves. Yeah, but that makes sense because a lot of stuff has changed in the code. But just for changing a few numbers. So, and also consider your artist, or I don't know, your level designer or whoever. Things like, okay, that value still doesn't fit. I know I had just to get the new value, just to get the new speed and everything, I had to hit the compile button. And when I run it now, I get the new value, but the value still isn't right. So what does, if you have your level designer, your game designer, or your artist who's currently working on this, and you, the coder, you're working on something completely different. You have your task, you have a new component you have to write. So what happens now? Your artist sits there and says, okay, I need this value to be changed. And then he's calling you and telling you, I need this value to be different. So you either go into the code yourself, change this, and everyone has to recompile. Or you tell your artist, yeah, look, there's this C++ file, go to line 35, and there you can change the two values. And artists should not have to go into our code files, because that is something that really, well, they don't have to do by definition. So this is the very first good practice or best practice that we really should follow. If we have values like this, never put them hard-coded into your code. Never have statically hard-coded values. They are rarely any good. Even if it's a multiplier, because you say, yeah, I have a speed value and I just multiply this up because of the scale of the map. And you think that this value is only of interest somewhere inside your code. Maybe your artist comes to the idea of rescaling the whole scene, and then this multiplier also needs to be changed. So try to avoid hard-coded values wherever possible, because they are rarely any good. They rarely make any sense. It's way better to make these values settable in the editor. And the nice thing is, it's so easy to do this. So we just go into the header file and we make two public properties of our class. And the one is an integer, and that's the important speed. And this is the important defense. This also solves another problem. This also solves the problem we just talked about with having to initialize these themselves, because if the variables can be set using the editor, Unreal will take care that there is something in your value. And if nobody ever set something in the editor, Unreal will actually put, or is supposed to, or we can try if this actually works, but it should put a decent default value in your variables. So the first thing is we define our values that we're going to eventually be needing. We just define them as public properties of our class. And then, because they won't show up even if they are public, and this is also different from how Unity works, because if you have public properties that you usually really should not have, and we might see if that, let's try if this works if we put them to private, because you never should have, this is another best practice. Never have public properties. Never. They are always private, and you always use getters and setters, and there's always also good reasons for this. Not sure if maybe we keep talking about these things next week, because there's so many things that I still want to tell you, and also the reasons why. So let's try if it works if we make them private, because in Unity, if you have a public property, you can already edit it from the inspector, but in Unity you can make them private and then tell Unity, look, I want this to be serialized into the inspector and everything's cool. So let's try if this works here. So even if they are public, if they're up here, they won't show up in the editor. You probably not gonna make them public anyways. Oh, okay. See, I didn't know about that. So it makes them public anyways. I don't quite like this, but well, this is a necessary evil. It makes them public anyway, so we can just put them in private. Yeah, but if they are made public anyways, even if it, yeah, we might actually need to look in. Maybe we can. I don't know. Let's see. Can we actually see what this does? No, I can't. Oh, I can't click into that. Too bad. This is actually interesting, but let's try. Just for the sake of trying, let's put them to private. But yeah, exactly. This is completely right. We need the hue property thing. We've used this before, and we just set this to edit anywhere. And this will make our values be visible in the editor, given the reload works. So let's compile this. Compiling, dooby dooby doo. So, let's see if we have something here. And it looks we don't. Let's try this again. Maybe we have to restart the editor. This definitely helps. So let's reopen this. Maybe that helps already. And yeah, here we go. See? There it is. Important speed, important defense as values of our practice component. And look at that. They are already filled with zeros. So this actually helps for our uninitialized variable problem, because the engine knows, okay, you want this to be settable. You want to do things with this. So the engine takes care that we definitely have something sensible in there, even if it's nothing. And now we just need to use this. Now we just need to go back into our code, and we can basically just scrap all of this. And also these, because we don't need them. And our important result will then just be important speed and important defense. Let's hope this works. Let's compile this. And just compile it twice, just to make sure. So it's definitely reloaded, because if that didn't work, it will not work at all. But yeah, that worked. So, and now we got this 0 here. The new value is 0, so that means our NPC will not move at all because it has a movement speed of 0, so it just sits there. But it won't sit there for long because it will immediately die, because it has no defense or anything. It'll be killed by the slightest whistle. But the nice thing now is, now your playtester, your balancing guy, your game designer, your artist, whoever it is that does something on your project and is not you or another coder who knows your code, can just go in the editor to the actor, hit this practice component, and has the values up here. And can then just say, yeah, you know what? The speed is actually 5, and he totally has a defense of 12. For whatever that means. And then just compile and save the actor, run the thing, and there you go. There is our value. Technically, this isn't magic. We've done this in the past weeks. We've done this so many times, and we've made values editable from the editor. So technically, this is absolutely, this is nothing new. This is no rocket science. This is not like, oh my God, this is how it's done. No, absolutely not. You might laugh about this, and you might think, why is this guy showing us this? Because this is so simple and so self-explanatory. Yes, but the thing is, it's not the. This is I'm talking about this not because of the how it's done, but because of the do it. So, long story short, avoid hard-coded values whenever you can and move them into the editor, so whoever's doing something on your project can just go into the editor, change those values, hit play, and then see if everything is like it's supposed to be. This will save you so much time and so much work and so much angry coworkers that are lining up in front of your door because they all want to have values changed. Another thing is, and I try to make this a bit more brief because oh yeah, I also wanted to talk about private and public properties. Let's see, I don't forget this. Let me just make a little side note here. No public prop, because I tend to, especially when I'm doing this live on streams, we keep talking about other things, and I tend to forget what I originally wanted to say. So just let me take a little note there. So another thing, but for this, let's make say we have this practice component, and this practice component will need another class. Let's say you have a helper class. Let's say you have a practice helper. There's functionality in there that you're using to, I don't know, do other stuff. What you could do is you could just create a class, and I will not show you this because you all know how to create classes. I will just show you the good way of doing this. You can create a class. You can make a helper directory here. We can already create this. You can say, yeah, I got my helper in here. You create your practice helper, and then somewhere in here, you instantiate your helper class in simple C++, you would, well, there's no simple C++, there's only C++. So in C++, you would just say new my class, whatever, to get your object. In Unreal, you would use the new object function to actually instantiate the thing if you made it a proper U object, yada yada. We've talked about this. So what you could do is in do something important, like if this is something that your helper class does, is you could do something like my helper and then new object helper class, and everything's fine and dandy, and then you can use your helper down here. Nah, come on. And call this and have stuff there. Technically, you can do this. Technically, there is nothing preventing you from doing this. Practically, you should absolutely not. There's another rule of thumb, equally like we had it with the with our values, where we said avoid hard-coded values whenever you can. The same goes for new. Avoid the new whenever you can, or however you can. There should be, in a perfect world, nowhere in your code, nowhere ever, except maybe one or two very special places, there should never be a new. Well, there's exceptions. Of course, there's for every rule there's an exception. So if it's just a data object, if you just have a class that's more like a fancy struct, and all the class has is private properties and the according getters and setters for them, and no actual logic, no actual code in there. It's just a data collection thingy. So you have a bucket where you can put your data in a somewhat structured way to them, pass them around, which is another best practice thing I'd like to talk about. How to pass data within your application. Let's hope we get to this. So then you can then of course you can just instantiate this with new, put your data in and pass this out. This is one of the very few exceptions where you can have a new. But in any other cases, you should have absolutely no new calls, and be it the C++ new or be it the new object from Unreal, doesn't matter. You should not create or instantiate and not even get. Something that would be as equally bad would be my helper equals, I don't know, we have a globally available game manager. Yeah, let's try to cheat the auto completion here. And that has a static function that, I don't know, like get the helper. Also bad. These are equally bad. So not only should you not use any new methods or any new statements, also if your method or your class needs something from the outside, you also don't get it inside of your methods. You don't go out and it's like, I need this, so I'm getting this and then I can use this. There is something, the fancy name of this, there's a fancy name for what I actually want to propose you. What's a very good practice and keeps your code clean and maintainable, and for those people who want actually to test their code, it keeps it testable. The fancy name is, and you might have heard this already, is dependency injection. And dependency injection is super duper cool and hip and a super nice name, and everyone says, oh, dependency injection here, dependency. What dependency injection basically is, it's glorified passing of parameters. So some people actually try to make dependency injection look like rocket science. Something that's super new and super sophisticated and super complicated. Well, it's none of these. It's absolutely none of these. All that dependency injection is glorified passing of parameters. Dependency injection is the idea of everything that your class or the methods inside your class, everything external they depend on, you pass them on from the outside when calling them. This can be in the constructor. This can be when you instantiate, like when in the one spot where, because at some place you have to use a new, or otherwise you won't be able to create any objects at all. So at the very beginning, where we actually do use and need the new to get started and get our first objects created, and you instantiate this object, you can pass everything else it needs to the constructor, and then the constructor saves this in private properties. So when the methods actually need this, they can just take from the private property, and then just use it, which also gives you better performance. So in our world, where performance is super important, where every millisecond counts, and not like, I don't know, when you have a REST API that's somewhere on the web server, a few milliseconds don't really matter. But in our world, where 60 frames per second is already yesterday's news, and you should be able to pull 120, 144, or even 240 FPS, every millisecond counts. And sometimes you need things more than once, like this helper. You might have other methods in this class that also need this helper. And if you instantiate this all the time, that's going to be costing you a lot of those precious milliseconds. And if you get it, it still costs you. It's still a bit more costly than just having a private property where that thing sits readily available and you just have to call whatever method you want to call. You don't have to get it, you just can use it because it's readily there. And you achieve this by either passing it to the constructor of your class or to the method itself. That's also perfectly fine. If maybe this helper is really only needed by this one method, you can have a parameter of this method that gets an object of my helper class given in. So it can just use it. Fortunately, in situations like when working with Unreal, it's even more easy. Because we basically do the same thing as we did with our values. So let's go into the header here and just copy paste this, make a new property. But first we have to actually, for this to work, we actually have to create our helper method first, our helper class first. So let's do this. New C++ class, another actor component, and this is our practice helper component, and we put this in the helper subdirectory. We create the class. This will be, we just put one in that does, I don't know, something like super simple. It's just for demonstration purpose, like what I mean and how you actually do this. So now it needs to compile, and maybe eventually we'll be ending up with another file. Oh yeah, and there we go. And it even, what's that? That looks weird. Why does it show me this? What just happened? Oh, it crashed. Did it crash? No. Okay, that was weird. Did I still have some weird? Did I still have some weird breakpoint set or something? Nah, no breakpoint set. Okay, that was weird. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, we got our class here, and just let's tidy this up quickly. Something we're so used to by now. Just to make things nice and tidy, and also because of the large font to not use up so many unnecessary space. So this one has a neat function that is our important help, and it takes an int42 of x and it takes an int32 of y. And it's actually not void, it's actually also an int32 because it returns us just the sum of those two. Again, this is only for demonstration purpose. Just pretend there's super important and super complicated and super complex stuff happening there. So let's see if that's public, wonderful, nice. So we can now go in. Well, we actually need to go in here and add our helper. Where is it? Practice helper component. There it is. Cool. And now we can have this property, and that's of type uPractice component, and this is our practice helper. Why is this in red? Oh yeah, because we've talked about this so many times. This has to be a pointer, of course, because we can't have a whole object in a variable. Well, yeah, maybe you get it by now. And what we can do here is we can say our important result is the result of our practice helpers. No, not important defense. Why does the practice helper have an important defense thingy? What did I do wrong there? Because this is the practice component, and this needs to be our practice helper component. See? And there is important help, and that gets our important speed and the important defense, and everything is neat and dandy. I have a feeling that my IDE removes those. I have to check the settings. Yeah, so the idea is to pass our helper class, our helper object from the outside and give it from the outside to our actual class, so it can then just use it. And since we're working in Unreal Engine and things are so convenient sometimes, all I did was, because again, I said I can pass this to the constructor and then save the reference to this object in a private property. All I did now was just create this private property. I'm not bothering with adding it to the constructor of my class and having it passed into, or having a setter that event. Well, you can't do this because sometimes in our actual project here in Let Them Trade, where I actually have situations where some of you might seen this with some of the balancing values that I can't just set in the editor because the components are never available in the editor because they are dynamically added at runtime. So you can't set these things in the editor, but so you can actually you can have a set helper function. You can have, and we can actually do this. We can just do both ways. We can have, because that is totally fine and absolutely valid and works. We can have a set helper method here, and that gives us a practice helper component. This is the helper, and all this, because this is just a setter method. All this does is to set the practice helper to whatever it got there. And let me see if I used the, yes, I have practice helper. I did use the right property there. Okay, cool. Let's just add this to the header, and also let's make the, where is it? Oh, wrong header. And also let's make this blueprint callable, because we have to call this from somewhere to actually give the reference in. And what's complaining here? Violates coding standard. Oh, okay. See, this is when you have a good IDE, it even tells you if just the naming, the spelling of your variables is wrong, because in Unreal, it's common practice that all your variables start with an uppercase character. With what I actually need to get used to, because I'm used to starting them with lower case characters. And there's also the thing I haven't showed you yet is this coding style guide. Not only code, also, you know what? I just put this, because this is just a good time. I just put this into the chat. How is my IDE called? I am using Rider for Unreal. Where is the about? There. I'm using Rider for Unreal Engine, which is currently in public preview. So there's an online form at JetBrains where you can say, hey guys, I want to use your Rider for Unreal Engine. And then they give you a license till, oh, this is actually till March. This is till March, yeah, till March. This is interesting. Might sometimes just be till February or something. Yeah, this is currently in open preview. They are close to finishing this because there's Rider for Unity for quite a while, and they now started to make a Unreal Engine specific version of this IDE as well, and I love it. It's just, I've worked with JetBrains IDE for so long because I started using PHP Storm in my previous job. I worked with PHP Storm for years. That was my main tool, my main my main. I did all my work with this, and as you can see, I got quite some JetBrains IDEs installed here because I really like them. They have so nice features. So I was very happy to see they made a Unreal Engine version of their IDE. Yeah, so this is it. This is Rider for Unreal Engine. Let me just put this in the chat, just because we can. Rider for Unreal. This is it, and I have no idea why I always get this in this language I do not want to see when I'm working with computers. Do you use the JetBrains IDE for Go? Yes, here it is. There is my GoLand. I use JetBrains IDEs for everything. Every language I use, if there's a JetBrains IDE for it, that's my go-to IDE. I really should ask them. This is, by the way, this is not sponsored. This is no advertisement. This is just me saying, just to make this clear. JetBrains has no idea I even exist, let alone me sponsoring something. So this is just me stating my opinion. That's it. Not paid, not advertisement, no nothing. Yeah, and here's my GoLand. I also use JetBrains for my Go stuff. Yep, I do. So let me give you also Rider for Unreal Engine, blah, 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 blah. I just, for those who are interested, I'll just paste you this into the chat as well, because, yeah, well, because why not? Because we can. Yeah. And there's so many nice features. It's the tiny things. It's the tiny things like this one. And I am someone I am very, very strict when it comes to coding style and coding conventions. And I'm so happy that this is something the IDE takes care for me, because I'm hopping between programming languages, because currently at work I'm using 3 programming languages, and I'm constantly hopping 3? 4. I'm using 4 of them. They accept really fast. Yeah, it's basically just a. I think they automatically. I think they just automatically send out the trial thing. They just want you to sign up using the form for, I don't know, to have your email or anything. Because I'm hopping between, I think even 4. Let's see. I'm working with PHP at work. I'm working with C# when doing Unity projects. I'm working with C+ when doing Unreal projects, and I am working with Go when doing backend stuff. Yeah, 4. I'm hopping between 4 different languages all the time, because I'm using these all the time at work. And you get confused, because in the one you have this coding style, and on the other you have the other coding style. And I'm so happy that the IDE takes care of this. I don't have, every time I write something like this, I don't have to remember, was this the place where variables are uppercase, or was it more lower? I don't know. I just write it out, whatever I think might be right. And the IDE tells me, hey, this is okay, you can do this, but convention is that things start with an uppercase character. So cool, because I am very, very strict, and I'm a huge fan of sticking to these style guides, and actually, yeah, you know what I mean. To obey them, it's, yeah, I don't know. There might be a better way of wording this, but you know what I mean. To actually follow, yeah, this might be a good way to say, to actually follow the style guide that's established, that's common practice. I'm a fan of this, and I also decline pull requests when you don't do this. If you don't follow these common practices, I will decline your pull request if you're working for me. So yeah. So this is nice. And another nice little things is like I can just select this, and I can put any kind of brackets around them. And then I say, yeah, wait, curly brackets, they are supposed to be on separate lines. I just go there, hit return once, and everything's properly formatted. Then you have this code reformatting thing. It's the small features. It's the small quality of life features that make me liking this so much and enjoying working with this declaration and assignment can be, no, they can't. So you see, sometimes I got my own styles, because it tells me that I could put this up there, but I don't want this. I like it to have my declarations and then the assignment separately. I usually like it to have my declarations up there without any equal signs, but that's just me. That's just me practice. It's perfectly fine to put this up there, but I don't like it, so I don't do it. Whenever Dominic will go back to normal language from Python, you write true, false with a capital letter at the beginning. And it always gives you an error. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Exactly. Stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. So, the thing I actually wanted to show you is to get this over with. So we want to pass this in, and I said there's so many ways of doing this, and this one is perfectly fine as well. And we can just assign this from the editor. Yeah, told you we can do this in the constructor, which is in this case a bit. In this case, it won't actually work, because Unreal would have no idea if we give the constructor parameters. Unreal would have no idea. But we don't need this. Pascal case. Yeah, I actually had to get used to that in C#. Your private properties of your class start with an underscore. I've done this, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. I've actually done this when I was coding C. I actually used a lot of underscores as the first character of internal stuff. And then I came into the PHP world and there were no underscores. It was like, no. We used to do them. We don't do them anymore. So I need to get used to not using the underscores for my private properties anymore. And now I'm back at C++. No, at C#, sorry. At C# for Unity, where again, you use your underscores for your private properties, and then you go to C++, way. By now, these days, you don't do it. It's confusion. It's total chaos. It's total chaos. So, but 2 ways to actually pass our helper thingy into our class is first to compile it. All right, let's hope this worked. And now we should be able to add our helper component to our blueprint. Perfectly fine. And then we got our practice thingy here. And oh, I see. This actually doesn't work. See. Okay, see? It actually doesn't work like this. My idea was to have this settable in the editor, so I can just pull my instance of my helper component into this property and just be able to use it. That was my idea. Yeah, it doesn't work. See, this is sometimes you see that you have a great idea that's actually very good, but it doesn't work because I'm not able to actually pull this, because down here when I have add this helper component onto my actor, it's sitting here, and this is an instance. This is an instant version. This is an usable object. This is why I have this here, and I can't call this out. And okay, we don't have any functions to call from this. So in C++, you see often m underscore in the front of member variable classes. What do you think about that? Wow, that's ugly. Also in Unreal, you totally don't do this. In Unreal, it would completely violate the code style that's established. But then again, it comes down to the individual project team. If you're working on a project, and that is your project, which means you're in charge, you're the one who has the final word on decisions. If you say m underscore is the way to go, then do it. You can also do this in Unreal. No one's blaming you for this. If you say this is the way I do things, you can do this. It's just not the not the established way of doing things, because this is I've just posted you this into the chat a while ago. This goes through a lot of style guide things. Naming for assets, naming stuff in code. It even talks about prefixes and suffixes for file names. And I think even sections, folder names. I think it even goes into code. Like how to call your blueprints, how to call your variables, how to call your methods and functions. And all this is established Unreal style guide. So if you write your code based on what's said here, and this is one of the reasons why we want to do this. This is one of the reasons why I am so strict on following these style guides, because if you do it like this, if you follow all the style guides that's written in here, any other Unreal developer that also knows this style guide can immediately work with your code. Because the naming is the same and how things are done are the same. And this is the general idea. This is the idea why we do this. Because I've said this many times in the last weeks. Don't take stuff for granted. If someone tells you, yeah, this is how it's done, ask why. Like we did with the pointers. Why do we have to pass our objects as pointers, as references? Why can't we just why can't we just pass them like in any other language? And this is the reason why. Because if you stick to this, and everyone else in any other company who uses Unreal Engine sticks to this as well, you can join a new company you've never heard of before, but they offered you a job and you accept it, and they use Unreal Engine. You can sit down and immediately start working with their code, because you know the system, you know the style guide. You understand how things are done because they are done the common way, or the other way around. You have someone you want to work on your project, and you followed the style guide, and the other person also knows the style guide and usually follows that. This person can come in and can immediately work with your code. And this is the idea. This is the reason why we do this, because I think it was even said here something, because there's a very, very good quote. Let me see if I find this. Otherwise, I will just quote it to you free-handedly. But argument. This is not the one I meant, but this is quite good as well. Arguments over styles are pointless. There should be a style guide, and you should follow it. Period. What the exact style guide is, again, depends on your team or your company. Okay, I'm not finding it here, but the quote I wanted to quote to you is: code, no matter how large and no matter how many people have actually worked on this code, code should always look like it's written from one person. No matter how many persons actually have worked on that code. And you achieve this with a common style guide that everyone sticks to, that everyone follows. And then you get exactly that. And that results in code that everyone can maintain, code that everyone can read and work with. And this is the reason why we want to do this. And the reason why I can't put my helper in here is because this wants a reference to an object, but I can only choose stuff from my assets here. I cannot pull this one into that and just drop it there and have my instance there. The editor doesn't give me this option. So we actually do have to use the setter method, which is not a problem at all. This is why we made it, and I wanted to show you anyway. So we have our set helper, and I can just pull in my helper instance here, drop this in there. Everything's handy dandy. Get this executed. And this is my practice component from which I call the set helper, and I just pass this in here so it can be set. The problem now is, and this is something you then have to handle, and this is one of the first moments where people say, why can't I just instantiate my helper here and then do stuff there? Because at the moment we have our do something important called in the begin play. The problem is that immediately fires when the component becomes alive, and we haven't set our practice helper yet. So this will inevitably crash. This will go kaput. So we can't call this here, and we actually have to make this one also blueprint callable. So we can make sure that we call this only after we've called the set helper thing. So this is one of the, I don't want to call it downsides, but this is one of the things you have to consider if doing it like this. And again, this is one of the first situations where people who are not used to this say, why? I mean, look, now I have to go all this extra hassle, and I have to take care of that this is not called before the helper has been set. Trust me, in the end, when your projects grow larger, you're happy you did it like this from the very beginning. So let's open this thing again, and now we also should have our where is it? No. Oh yeah, hot reloaded. Okay, I see. Save all. We have to restart the editor. This is the good old hot reload bug of Unreal since 4.17 or something. Anyway, let's just reopen the editor. You have to do this in Unity all the time as well. Unity eventually starts giving you a lot of errors, and restarting it helps. Unreal has just a somewhat similar problem. But hot reload is actually a very complicated thing. What the hot reload is, because all your objects are still instantiated in memory. And when you recompile your objects, the instances in memory have to be replaced by versions based on your new code. And this is a very complex and complicated thing. So it usually fails. It just doesn't work. So now we can call our function and do something important. Great. Have it called there. Oops. Now I just want to move this thing out of there so it all looks just a bit more tidy. This looks nice, doesn't it? So, and when we run this, we still get 0. Yeah, because we haven't set our values, right? Did we set our values? We haven't set our values. 5 and 12. Compile, save, run, and there we go. So, long story short, always see that you pass whatever dependencies, and this is, again, the fancy word, the fancy hipster word for this is dependency injection. So you will encounter this, people will tell you dependency injection, which is nothing more than glorified passing of parameters. It's this. Dependency injection is the idea of every dependency, everything external your class or your method needs, you give it to it. It will. You never take something. You never go out and grab something. You always give. You always get things given or handed to. That's the general idea, and this has quite a few advantages. It keeps your code maintainable. It keeps your code a bit more readable because you don't have you don't have your methods scattered with news and get this, get that. You know what stuff you're passed into, and also it makes it more easy to replace this. Because maybe you have a new helper class you want to use. You don't have to replace all the places where you instantiate it. You just replace it here. You just give this a new class, something else, change the property, and all the spots who use this will automatically error out because they are trying to access stuff that's not there, that's different. So this makes it way more maintainable and testable because some people actually want to test their code. But this is a complete own topic on its own. So yeah, this is another thing you should do, to always pass everything you need from the outside, pass it in, and then use it. Never go out and take stuff from yourself. Another thing, and this is the one I noted down to not forget it. We had this for a bit when I was thinking about these properties when we made them available in the editor. Never have public properties. Never do something like this. This is sum A, and then we have a C and a B. Yes, you do want these to be accessible from the outside. There will be other classes that will access these values eventually, either by reading from them or by writing to them, which sometimes you do not want. Sometimes you only want them to be readable. And a public property cannot be read-only. It can be read-only when you declare it as your property and you have it in the editor. Then you can set it to read-only, but that's something completely different. But if you have your properties here, sometimes you want them to be read-only. Sometimes you maybe even want them to be write-only. But whatever it is, you never want them to be public. This is also, I've said this quite a few times already, this is also a reason why if I see this in a pull request, it's immediate rejection. We do not want to do this. We always want our properties to be private, so they are ours. And if we want them to be accessible from the outside, we actually write getters and setters for this. In C++, we actually, I think is there a special getter and setter like in C#? I don't think so. So I'm just going to be doing this for one of those values. But you want to have a set A, which, well, is A. And you want to have a get A that actually, in this case, because we're not calling this from a blueprint, we can just say this returns an int 32. This returns our, I call it sum A, right? And this just says sum A equals A. So this is how you want to do it. And of course we have to add these to our header or else they won't work. And those have to be public because that's method. Yeah, that's methods we actually want to be called from the public. So, but your properties should never be public. Always make them private. And if you want them to be accessed from the outside, make a setter, make getter and setter functions. So you have a function to set the value of this, and you also have a function to get the value of this. The reason why we want to do this are numerous. And I know I'm currently forgetting one, because there was one situation recently at work where I said, see, this is the exact reason why we wanted, why we made all our properties private, because we had one situation where we actually really benefited from already having them all private. But I might remember eventually what it was. It was something that perfectly worked. Just because it was private and we had getters and setters. But the first thing is you can have a variable read-only. So you can say, yeah, I don't have a get for this. I don't want outsiders to change the value of this property. But I do want outsiders to see the value. Like this is the score. This could maybe this is your game manager and this is the current score of your player. And you want many places in the game to be able to access the current score, to do something with them, to show them, to post them to the leaderboards. And I don't know, do fancy stuff with them. But you do not want other places from the code be able to set it. So you don't have a set function. You only have a get function. Another reason is when, for whatever reason, and I know in this very, very tiny example, this doesn't make sense, but consider this being part of a huge and complex project and this not being as simple as this. But let's say for some reason, our property sum8 doesn't do it anymore. And we have to replace this. And maybe we replace this with, I don't know. Again, this is just an example. This is some new A1. We split it up into two values. For whatever reason, we split it up into two values. And yeah, or we had to change it. The thing is, we had to change this property. It works differently now. Maybe we maybe we changed the type. Maybe we figured out, okay, integer really doesn't do it. We need this to be a float or a string or a Wiener Schnitzel. I don't know, whatever. The neat thing now is, and this is an idea I'm following very strictly, is decoupling stuff. And this is also what I don't think we're going to be able to talk about this today, because we're almost closing in to the end of today's session. To decouple stuff. I might, let's first finish this, and then I'll say a few words about how this decoupling works and what I mean with this. So, but the nice thing now is, since if these would have been public and other places of the code accessed these values, and the thing is, I have no idea from where that there could be. Again, imagine this is a huge project with maybe hundreds of people working on it. There could be so many places that actually access this value. And by now they will all crash. By now they will all crash because the property does not exist anymore. They try to access something that's gone, which will make them crash. And even if you can find most of the occurrences where this is accessed, you're guaranteed to miss one. And eventually your game or your project will crash because some place in the code still tries to access your old sum_a value that does not exist anymore. This is a problem you do not have when you had private properties and then just getters and setters, because no matter what you do with your properties, the getter and setter can stay the same. Maybe they are not 100% clear now anymore. Maybe because, well, this is not, we have A1 and A2. So they don't perfectly match to what they're doing, what they're accessing here. But it's still clear enough, or you can take care of it still being clear enough. Or you could even make some new, like this is set new A1. Yep. So this is new A2. No, this is still A1. And we again do this for the A2. So you can still have proper getters and setters for your new properties, but the old ones still exist, and the old ones can call the new ones, so that when someone looks at your code, and you can even set the deprecation notice on there. Actually, I'm now, how do I, wait, is there, can we like say, Nah, we don't, huh? Nope. Okay, I'm sure there's a way. I just don't know it at the moment. I'm pretty sure you can set this to deprecated. So when you try to access this, your IDE will tell you, this is old. Don't use this anymore. Let's see. Maybe we find this Unreal C++ deprecate functions. Is there something? Deprecating symbols. Look at that. Your property edit anywhere. Okay, this is you function. Look at this. Look at that. Here we go. We just put. This is cool. But I'm not sure if the IDE will actually show you this, but then there's always this one. So we can always let's do both. Let's do both because you can then not sure if you do this. Where do we do this here? Do we do this here? Because you could just say, look, this is deprecated. Use the new ones. So, okay. Where was it? There. And I want to do this as well because neat and tidy. Need to do everything properly. So we don't need this in blueprints. We just want to say deprecation function. Deprecated function, deprecated message. Use the new ones. And we also do this here. So this is the super clean and over perfect way of doing this. So even marking these two as deprecated because you removed the property, you changed stuff, you can mark them as deprecated. And with this doc block stuff, even your IDE should know this. Should you ever call this, or in the auto completion, your IDE should show these as strike through, or at least tell you deprecated, use the new ones. Maybe there's a different way. I'd have to try this because I haven't used them so far. And also, you see, because we removed them, these setters don't work anymore anyways. So, and since we did split this up in new A1 and new A2, why is this green? Remember, maybe, yeah, okay. Again, this is just for demonstration purpose. This is deprecated, and this basically calls, this is the set function. It basically calls the two new functions that we have. And yeah, I don't know. This is it's only to demonstrate this. So this returns this one. So the point being is, and this is only the icing on the cake. This is to really properly do this, to mark them as deprecated. But the idea is, if you use getters and setters instead of public properties, one of the advantages is you can change whatever you want inside your class. You can completely throw away the old property and make new ones. Everything else in your code that accesses this will still work. It will still work because you just change your old getters and setters to the new way you do things in your class now. So you don't break anything. And this is important. This is one of the most important rules. When you change code, change your code in a way you don't break anything else. Because this happens more often than you think. People change code that is accessed from someplace else, and this other someplace then doesn't work anymore because you change things in a way the other place that calls your code doesn't know to handle because it doesn't know anything changed. So it still just thinks the old way, but the old way doesn't work. The old way crashes. Yeah. Always try not to break other other places of code that might access you. And using this, you can, because those still exist. They are deprecated. They should not be used anymore. But old pieces of code that still exist, that have not been adapted to the new way of doing things, will still work, because they don't even know anything changed. They will still perfectly work and everything's fine. Also, if you don't want the thing to be writable, if you want to make read-only, you just have the get methods and not the set methods. So there's quite a few advantages why you should do this, why you should always make your properties private and never public. There's almost no need to ever have a public property. The only situation I had in the past where I needed public properties was when in Unity or maybe it was even for the Unreal one, I used the JSON utility that comes with the engine, and this JSON utility parses JSON strings into your data objects, or vice versa, produces a JSON string based on your data object, and that thing only works with public properties. So, but that is something that's given. This utility, those methods you're calling them, they just don't work with private properties. They could if they would have spent a bit more work and used reflection and all the nitty gritty. You can make it possible, but they didn't. So this is out of my control. This is out of your control. In that case, when it's things you can't change, you just have to use as they are because you can't change them. Of course, then you need to use public properties. So, but those are simple data structures. But even then, if you have a simple data object that only holds data, always make the properties private and always use getters and setters for also many reasons. And again, we had one situation recently at work where I was so happy that we did it that way because it made life so much more easy. I remember saying, see, this is why we want our properties private. But I can't remember the exact situation. I don't know. Maybe I'll remember later on, and then I will tell you maybe next week. Let's see if I remember. But yeah, this is only 2 reasons why we want to do it like this. So you have more control about what can be done, and if you change things, or sometimes your value actually needs to be doing something because you change an internal scale. So your getter or your setter can multiply and divide by 100 or something because internally you use a different scale than what it's expected externally. So you're so much more flexible. You have so much more control doing it like this. Okay, I hope I could make this clear. I hope I could explain why I think this is a good way of doing it. And of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, like the one I just stated. Then just a few last words to wrap this evening up, because I've said decoupling a few times when talking about the getters and setters. When you have 2 pieces of code that talk to each other and they exchange data, you should always use a common data object to pass data from one part of your code to the other. If you're using it inside of your own method, or maybe you have 2 or 3 classes that work very closely together, you don't need to do this. But if you have like a different component, like if I have this test component from last week here and our practice component from today, they want to communicate with each other and they want to exchange data. Put a common data object in between. Don't just pass the data how you have it in this component over to the other. Because the very same thing like with the getters and setters, because your data structure inside your one class might change. And then you have to change the other classes, and you might communicate this to other places in the code as well. And then you have to change them all to match the new structure of your code. So you come up with a data object that's well defined and known, and the structure of the data in this data object does not have to match any of these. Usually at the beginning it will perfectly match. Usually at the beginning, when you first implement this, the data structure of our first component will be exactly the same as the data structure in the data transfer object. And the data structure in our second component will exactly be the same like this. So again, you might think, why? Why put this object in between when it's all the same structure anyways? Why can't I just pass my data from class 1 to class 2? Why do I have to map my data from class 1 into my data object, then pass this data object containing all this data to class 2, and class 2 has to map the contents of the data object back into its own values and data structure? If they are all the same, why do I have to do this? Well, the reason is exactly the same like with the getters and setters, because those data structures might change. And I have had this happen a lot, where I did this. I used data objects to pass stuff back and forth. And I could also pass a data object to Sheen Array, and this data object would contain hi, a wonderful Thursday night, because it's not really evening. It's night already. Shino, hi there. Greetings. Yeah. So data structures may change. So in your first class, you might all of a sudden have different things or other things. It just changed, but your data object stays the same. So all you have to change, and what often changes like is names. Like an example would be you're calling an API. You call an API. So you also make a transfer object for this. You have, on the one hand, you have the data structure that's in the API. Oh yeah, and then we got the green light. That's good, right? Like you got green. The green light usually means now you can do things. And yeah, it works. Ain't that nice? You have the API, and the API has its certain structure that it replies to you. Oh, Tripfish, hi, greetings. Now you show up. Now you guys start showing up when I'm almost about to wrap this up and finish the night. Anyways, hi, nice for you to stop by and check in. Greetings to all of you fine people. Hi. So, and you're having fun with the light. That's good. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. Have fun with the light. Have fun with the light. That actually looks quite white. Yeah, even though this, for me, when I look at the wall, this looks a bit purplish, but in the camera it actually looks white. That's good. What else do we have? Is there anything? I don't know. So, where was I? I was right. So you have the API and you have your internal code that then processes and deals with the data you get from the API. So, so that even works. So, and you put your, what's that? Oh, okay. So you put your data object in between. So you have you have your call from the API. You get the data from the API, and you map this data into your internal data transfer object. You pass this object to the remaining code that then actually deals and processes this data. And that code will then first map everything from the data object back into its own structure, and then finally work with the data. And now someone at the API said, oh, wait, we had a wrong name there. We had to rename this one data field, which usually you shouldn't do. You should do a new version of the API. But this is a completely different story. Just for the sake of this example, let's consider the API changed one of the data fields. It changed the name of one of the fields of data you get returned back. So all your code, all your locations in your code that call this API, you would need to change them. If you would directly call the API and immediately just use the data like you get it from the API, you would need to change everything. But since you didn't, because you thought ahead and you used this data transfer object, you get the data back from the API, and you only have to change it at one spot. You only have to change your mapping from the API into your data object. Only at this one spot you have to change. You have to look for a different name in the API data, but you put it at the old name in your data object. And then you pass this data object to all the locations in the remaining code in your project that process the data from the API, and they get exactly what they expect. They get this data object with nothing changed, and they can map the data back into their own data structure that also changed, was a completely structural, everything is different. But this piece of code doesn't matter because it still needs to know how to map from your data, from the data object into its own back into its own structure. So this is what I mean with decoupling. So you don't have hard defined structures in the communication within your own application, which makes it way more easy to change things, to replace things with something else, because you could call a completely different API, like, that API is crap, we're not using this anymore, we're calling the other API. It has way more RGB. But all the remaining code doesn't need to worry about this, because they are still getting the old commonly known data object with everything in there that they want or need to know. So this is only the tip of the iceberg. There's way more things that I like to take care of and think about when writing my code, like keeping everything quite modular, and which goes hand in hand with the decoupling thing, or reusable code is another thing. Reusable code is another very nice thing to have. So you write your code as generic as possible, so you can use this code for many, many other things. I have, especially now in the recent past, so many projects I got going so quickly because I could just copy paste code from other projects, because the code was generic enough. I could reuse it. I could just take this file, put it into this new project, and the new project can just use it and do all the things it wanted to do. So, but I think this would be a complete topic on its own. Writing reusable code that is not so sometimes you have to do specific code. Don't get me wrong. You have to do specific code that only does one job, but does this one job properly. You have to do this all the time. But there is pieces of code that can be quite generic. And Let Them Trade is quite a good example, because almost all of the code in Let Them Trade we have so far is quite generic. I showed you this when you build a city on one of these tiles. Let's see if this starts. Yeah. Like when you build a city on one of these tiles. Let me see if I can, okay, not have this scroll around. The code actually does not know that this is a city. The code just know that this is something that does certain things like having an economy and producing gold coins or a resource or whatever. But this could be anything. So we can easily extend this. We can have other stuff we can build. I could make this like, I don't know. This is a rocket base. This is where you launch your endgame rocket, maybe. Which uses all the same elements. And yeah, I'm quite bad at explaining this. But yeah, this is very, very generic. Do I find an example quickly? Like, see here you have the inhabitants. Yeah, this is a bad example. This would take a bit more time to explain this, what I mean, or maybe I should find a good spot. But well, the point is, try to make your code so it's reusable. So even if you maybe a better example would be if this is a city, or this is the sawmill. Oops, there's another city, or maybe it's the sawmill in the woods. Or maybe it's the thing that processes the iron ore. Or maybe the windmills. These are all very, very different things, but the code that's called for this is the same. And with the same, I actually mean it's the very same function that's being called. It's not like it's the same code that's copied anywhere. This is another thing you should try to avoid. Copy paste duplicate code is another thing you should really try to avoid, which is, and actually this is a problem I actually have right here, because I need to combine two functions, because you will where is my yep, this is the one I'm looking for. Because there's two functions that are so similar. Yeah, look, here's this fill map function. If you take a look at this, what this does, especially these things, we can put them side by side. Let's split them vertically, and let's put that side by side. So this is the fill map, and this is the generate map. And if you put them, where is this scroll bar so I can actually have them lined up properly? So, and if you put them side by side, you can also already see with the variable declarations, there's quite some overlap. And if we scroll down here, especially to where the precompiler thingies are, you can see it even has the same to-do line. Why isn't the to-do line here? Spawn can be put. Okay, this is, I don't know. But you can see they are pretty much the same. They are doing the very same thing. And not sure why this to do should be here as well. But I mean, look at this. This looks like I just opened the same spot in my code file in two different views. But if you look at the line numbers, they are different. And this is something you should absolutely avoid. And this is something I really have to fix. I really have to fix here. I have to combine these because they are so similar. There's so much stuff that's the same. And this down the road, this only gives you headaches and trouble, because if you change something, or if I change something, because what this does is this is the code that actually spawns spawns the tiles. These game tiles here, they had to be spawned, so they show up in the world. And this is, and this is the code that actually spawned the tiles. And the one function, what the generate map does is the generate map gets a JSON, and the JSON contains the information at which coordinate which game tile is supposed to be spawned, and the fill map just takes a size like I want the map from up there to down there, and just fill this with the default tile, and the fill map just loops through an area of the map and just spawns one specific tile everywhere. So they do slightly different things, but in the end they do the very same. And I have to combine this, at least the common part. There's two ways of handling this, and I have to see which one is the best way. One way would be actually combining them into one method that is able to do both and determines based on the parameters it gets what it does. And the second is to have the things that are actually different, because there's a few things that are different. Like this one first parses the JSON into a data object and then loops over the entries of the data object and pulls the X and Y from there to know where to spawn which tile. And this one just loops from A to B and C to D to make a square full of the same tile. So these different parts can stay, but then I think starting from here, starting from the Y equals yada yada yada, all the way down, like whereas all the way down to here. All this part could be extracted into a third method, and all these two methods do is calling the new third one. So that would leave those two methods alone with only the different parts, and everything that's the same, which is basically this block. This block is completely the same. If we scroll through here, look at that. Even the comments are the same. Even the comments are the same, because yes, it's copy-pasted. And this is exactly the problem. This is copy-paste code. And copy-paste code is something you really need to avoid. This is not good. I am super unhappy with this. I just didn't have the time yet to fix this. And yes, I know, usually you never find the time, but trust me, I will make time to fix this. Because this is something you really should avoid. Because if I want to change something, again, what this does is it actually spawns the game tiles. It spawns the given game tile at the given coordinate, at the given game coordinate, not world coordinate. It actually calculates the world space coordinate. And if I want to, Jesus Christ, need to drink something. And if I want to change something with the spawning of the tiles, I have to change it in both blocks of code, which sucks. Because, trust me, eventually you will forget. Yeah, red alert. Meep, 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 meep. Eventually you will forget you will change it here, but you will forget changing it here. And you will run into trouble. So, yeah, long story short, if you find copy-paste code, fix it. Period. Do it. There has to be the time to fix this. You have to, because this is one of the worst things that can happen to you. And this is a very, very good example of how not to do it. So yes, I'm guilty of this as well, but I'm aware of this, and this is definitely on my to-do list to fix. So yeah, this is another thing you shouldn't do. There's even for some build pipelines have copy-paste detection. There's actually a parser that in the build pipeline while your project is built goes through all your code, and once it finds blocks of code, and you can give a threshold, I think by default it's like 5 lines or so. If it finds like 5 lines or more of code that are equal, it tells you this needs to be fixed. This is bad. And it's right. That needs to be fixed. So, yeah, closing words. Decouple all your stuff. Use data transfer objects. For all the reasons I tried to explain, I hope I managed to make it clear. I can't ask this enough, please. If you have any questions, especially with the stuff I said today, like why? I understood what you told me. I should use data transfer objects. I should use getters and setters and never ever make public methods. I should never ever use static methods. Yes, I understood that, but why? Why is it bad when I do these things? If there's any doubts, if you've still any question of why I think things are bad, of which I said they are bad, please do ask, and I will try to explain it a bit more clearer. So yeah. Don't do copy-paste code. If you have blocks of code that are the same, fix this. Make this into one method. I think what I'm going to be doing with what I just showed you, the second thing, I think I will just take the block that is really absolutely identical. I will take this, I will put this into a third method where I have this code only once. And then it's called with all the variables that are used inside this block of code. I will make these parameters to this function call. So the other two functions can then just call this, which leaves the other two functions only with their parts that are different. I'm different. And the code that's the same only exists once, one time. So should I ever want to change something at how I spawn the tiles, I only need to change this at one location, and all of a sudden everything works. Decouple your stuff with data objects. Don't use public thingies. And the very dependency injection. Always give your classes, your objects, always give your classes external stuff they need. Always give this into your class from the outside. Never take it from the outside, which means do not use a get helper object function. Do not use new or anything. And always save. Yes, always control save. Never forget. Save often. The Unreal Editor itself, by default, I think every 10 minutes or so, it does an autosave. Your IDE might not. Always before you run something, always before you hit the play button, before you hit the magic play button up there. Wow, where did this put me? Why am I so far out? Does autosave. Yeah, but only in the editor. But your C++ IDE might also have autosave. But yeah, always be before you hit the play button, save. Because I had it that at one time I produced this was in Unity. I produced a endless loop that never returned, and I had to kill the engine from the task manager. This was the only way to recover from this. And I had done stuff in the scene, and I did not hit Control-S before I hit the play button. So save plenty, save often. There's no such thing as saving too often. Save every time. Every time you move your mouse, every time you look at a different pixel at your screen, save. Yeah, this is, I think this is a very good last thing to say for tonight, and to give you on the way. Always save, because the next time you hit the play button might be a crash that tears everything down. Yeah, see? And there we got the green light to actually slide into the night. And yeah, I hope this wasn't too confusing today. And I thank you all for being here and sticking with me and actually listening to all the things I had to say that I think are important. I hope I could convey some of the ideas I have, and especially the most important thing I'd like to get past is why. Why do I think doing it like this is quite important? And this is always, I've said this many times, always ask for the why. If someone tells you it's like this, ask why. Because sometimes you might not understand. Maybe sometimes you think this, dude, why do you want, why? And then you automatically ask, why do you want to do it this way? This, I don't know. What? This doesn't make sense. And if they can't give you a reason, yeah, it's really a stupid idea. But if they do give you a reason, maybe it makes sense. And eventually you say, yeah, damn, you're right. This is actually a good way of doing stuff. All right. I think next week the Game Dev Show is actually back. So next week on Wednesday, I will not be here. Next week on Wednesday, Stefan and Deborah will be back. But I will be back one more time. And this will be the last time, actually. This will be our last Thursday next week. And next week, we will just look back at the previous weeks. And we will just look over all the things we did. We'll just... take a look at what we did and how we did, just to get it back into our memories. Oh yeah, we did this, and this was done like that. We'll take a look at our game of life again and maybe let it run for a few generations. Yeah. So next week on Thursday, we will see each other again. And what comes after that is still a bit undecided, but there's a good chance that we will see us again even here, but maybe in a different form and maybe in a different show. There's a few ideas in the background. I'm not the one who's deciding on them. I'm just the one who might be one of the people showing up with the webcam here. Yeah. Otherwise... down there, the Twitter handles, and also just remove the Twitter ad and replace it with twitch.tv/ and you also got the recording, the Twitch channels that go with them. If you want more, even beyond next Thursday, feel free to follow there. And yeah. But next Thursday, one more time, we will see each other. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And again, thanks for your time. Thanks for being here with me. And have a wonderful night. See you around. That's it. Signing off.